Welcome to FemLead, the podcast on female leadership and role models. Prepare to feel inspired and better equipped to navigate your career path. I am Alexandra Chabotaru, your host, and together with my guests, we will tackle a new field of work in each episode. The aim of this podcast is to deep dive into career perspectives and strategies to navigate your desired path for success. Enjoy! Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Female Role Models podcast. My name is Alexandra, and I am your host for the day, preparing to discuss the journey into learning and development. As I have mentioned in the intro, each episode is a deep dive into a specific field accompanied by real-life examples from our guests and pieces of advice that will be a source of inspiration for your own journeys. Without further ado, let me introduce our guest. She is the former head of learning and development for Jumia, Africa's first billion-dollar company. She is a best-selling author on feminine leadership, and by the time she reached her early 30s, she had graduated from 3 business schools specializing in organization, change, and strategy. She had lived and worked in 17 countries on 3 continents. Today, she is a wellness, leadership coach, and growth hacker, and has a special message to share about her current business. So we will touch upon her entrepreneurial journey with all of you listening. Make sure you tune in until the end and help me get a round of applause for Alina Cristina Buteica. Welcome, Alina.
Thank you so much, Anda, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm beyond rejoicing and honored to be on your podcast. Thank you.
Thank you so much for agreeing to start this session with me. We've known each other for what, 8 years now?
Since our university times and volunteering in international organizations together. Yeah, it's been fantastic. What a journey.
Exactly. And we talked a bit about your journey while you were in Africa and coming back home in Romania sometimes during holidays. And I was at the time so surprised and in the same time excited for your journey. So, after some years, now we get to talk about it and for everybody else to listen so they can get some cool learnings from your experience. Tell a bit more about who Alina is and what should the people know about you if you could describe yourself in 2-3 sentences.
All right. Thank you, Anda. Once again, it's a privilege to be here with you. As you mentioned, I'm a growth hacker. I'm really passionate about growth in people and in companies. My personal journey has been about stepping into deeper and deeper levels of personal growth, of hacking my own mindset around what it means to live a sustainable life and to actually leave an imprint that is of value around you and in the companies you work with and in the organizations you work with and in the teams you work with. So therefore, yes, my journey has taken me gradually to learning and development, but it hasn't started there. It started as, and I believe you as well, you're a graduate of international business as a profile.
Well, the master's was called Innovation and Entrepreneurship, but it was definitely a business degree because I graduated from Copenhagen Business School. And it's definitely something that I also wanted to tap into and learn more about innovation. It was a great setup that I was able to get to here in Denmark.
Beautiful. So yeah, my journey started actually as a graduate of 3 business schools. My profile was in international business, but my specialization was organizational development and change, right? So if I'm to define myself today, I'm somebody who's passionate about personal growth, organizational growth, and feminine leadership. Which
That's wonderful.
Is not by chance that we are both together and speaking about it here.
I'm so happy you've mentioned that as well. I want to touch upon that as well. I want to go back to how everything started because you graduated 3 business schools. So the first question would be, well, first of all, how did this happen and how did you decide to go to business school? That's something that I know, for example, a lot of teenagers are wondering, where should I go if maybe some traditional jobs are not for me? What should I do? What are my options once I go to a specific program that maybe doesn't have a decent job title? Those are questions that a lot of youngsters now ask themselves, and I'm sure that even growing up, you probably asked yourself the same thing. So I would like to understand a bit how did you get to that point where you decided, okay, I'm gonna follow this this path, and then how did you decide to go to your business schools and the ones that you graduated, obviously, and how did that help you move into learning and development?
Okay, sounds good. I'll be very honest with you, Anda. My personal journey going into these business schools has been, and then later on into learning and development, has actually unfolded and developed quite organically. It wasn't necessarily by choice. So, and I really want to normalize for young people today who do not necessarily have a clear idea about where they want, what they want to study. I want to normalize the idea of really going with their gut feeling. However, we grew up in a system, both of us grew up in a system whereby our families actually had a pretty important imprint into our decision making. And in my case, actually, it's my family who led me towards economics. My dad ideally would have loved me to study computer science, as he's a graduate of computer science and economics. I would have ideally loved to go into arts and movie making to become a director. So the interesting mold of all of that came to be international business. Why? Because I found the world of business a fascinating way to still have freedom, to eventually have freedom of choice. And internationally, the international business schools that I went to, they had programs in English, and they allowed me to practice my foreign languages and my foreign language speaking. I've always been a pretty avid learner of foreign languages. And yes, I mean, my journey into 17 countries just is a testimony of that. So it actually was a led decision from my family, part of it, and then after having been pointed towards that direction by my family, I actually said, okay, I want to have some level of leverage as well. And I applied to different programs. I started in Bucharest with the business school in Bucharest, where I come from originally. And then I went in my third year, got a scholarship abroad in France. And that was, I would say, my taking off, if I can use a metaphor, my taking off into the international part of my studies and career segment. In the sense that afterwards I applied to a master's degree that was a triple master's degree, a collaboration between three business schools: the Lyon Business School of Management, Aston Business School of Birmingham, and Munich School of Management. So France, Germany, UK collaboration with professors from all three universities, which to me was very interesting. Like, I've always been somebody super passionate about diversity. Again, another component of learning and development. Very passionate about diversity, very passionate about learning about a particular topic, such as like marketing, for example, or finance, from three different perspectives, because that's what we ended up having in that master's degree. We had three perspectives of the professors coming from three different countries. Also, coupled with the fact that we were encouraged to have internships outside of our home country.
How did you start your career after graduating? You said you had some internships. Did you start your role as a learning and development specialist in Africa, or did you start already prior in another country?
No, it wasn't directly in Africa. Africa came as an opportunity along the road. I started off in Nissan, as I was saying, in Nissan Europe. in France, at their headquarters in France, as part of their organizational development department, which was a new department in the company, and working actually in change management. And the major change management project I was assigned to work on was the implementation of a new PMO, the project management organization for the company. So the structures and then communicating about it to the managers, making it as lean as possible, a transition from an old style of working to the new, more structured way of working together. And launching projects. So that's how I started. I started in the area of organizational development, and then I also worked. So initially, as a graduate as a young graduate, I had a period of what I would call fine-tuning where I actually want to go. So I experimented with a lot of areas. So organizational development is one of them. And I've also worked afterwards with business incubator for women, running entrepreneurship training, actually. So actually, that's where my first experience in training started, running entrepreneurship training. And then a few years down the line, I got an opportunity from a friend who knew that I absolutely adore working in new environments and the challenge of a new environment, who sent me a friend who was actually working with an HR consultancy who sent me this opportunity they had. They were recruiting trainers to work with a major multinational in Africa, trainers from across Europe. So I applied, I went through the whole interview process, and I discovered at the end the company who was recruiting was actually a French company who is the largest shipping and logistics provider for the whole continent of Africa. And it took me it was a full year working with them on a project of trainings where they were standardizing. Basically, they were standardizing their new identity and the way the managers communicated their new identity across the continent and the new processes. They were standardizing it by delivering these trainings. And I went with them to 10 countries. I would say my biggest learning out of that, to be honest, was actually, let me start with, there's learnings always on the personal and professional level. On the personal level, it was for the first time in my life where I was faced with actually having my whole life organized within a reasonably, not small, but let's say a mid-sized suitcase. Having my whole life organized in a mid-sized suitcase that I had to carry with me from one country to another, from one training mission to another for a whole year. And the average length of my training missions was around 2 weeks in each country.
Wow.
So yeah, you can imagine, like at the end of that year, I was exhilarated because I had been in so many cultures, met so many people, but at the same time, physically, I was a little bit tired because you
Definitely,
go from
yes.
hotel to hotel, from country to country, and from delivering so many trainings. But at the end of it, I realized this is where my passion was. Actually, I love traveling. I love the contact of new people, the interaction with new cultures, and I really love delivering trainings that are actually creating change. So on the professional level, my lesson was more around how to actually relate to different cultures, because I was speaking to people so diverse, as from Ghana all the way to Kenya, Burundi, Tanzania.
Wow.
Very, very diverse people. How to actually be able to relate on a human level,
On a deeper level with them.
On a deeper level with everyone you meet. And how to have grounded conversations and communication that allows you to really cross beyond the immediate and develop trust.
Yes.
So I think on a professional level, I learned a lot about communication and trust in business and beyond business, because a lot of people I stayed in touch afterwards through social media and LinkedIn.
Can you give us some deeper information on communication and trust? Those are two key words we will always hear when we tackle, not only career, but also your personal life. I want to maybe understand if you had some go-to resources that helped you in your journey, especially if it was something that you read, or if it was something that you felt you need to invest more time, or, involve others to get some learnings. And when it comes to communication and trust, what are some key learnings you found that maybe you didn't know when you started your role and you had to go all across the continent?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, on the communication level, to me, it is so important to stay humble and grounded. And I believe an important mindset to have, that is actually a positive mindset that allows you to have actually a conversation that brings meaning and value, even with the most difficult person in your life, whether that is actually personal life or business, is the mindset that says, everybody has an interesting story to tell. And I can learn from anybody. So if you start thinking that way, instead of thinking, oh, this is somebody like completely different than me, and I don't know, or being nervous, saying like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to relate to that person. And we have so many mindsets actually around that, whether that is somebody who is more, let's say, professionally developed than we are, or somebody who is in a different higher position career-wise than we are. We all kind of have this, like, at some point, this mindset of playing small or putting ourselves behind the wall of invisibility in a way, by thinking, how am I going to be able to relate to that person? No, you are able to relate to just anybody you want to relate if you start from the mindset everybody has an interesting story to tell. And that actually is coupled with the second learning for me in communication, which is deep listening. So the power of deep listening is incredible, in the sense that it acknowledges the person in front of you. It gives him or her space to be heard. And when somebody feels heard and seen, they actually open up about deeper issues. And then that leads to point number 3, which is trust, building trust. And you can build trust through deep listening and through being absolutely convinced from the very beginning, from the very start, that the person sitting in front of you has an interesting story that is worth knowing and talking about.
Wow, that sounds so good. And also, staying curious, and generally curiosity.
Totally.
The way you say it, it just sounds that curiosity is something that shouldn't be underestimated, because it's definitely a key point in just navigating life and career generally.
That actually,
Go ahead.
That actually led me to understand the fact that I love people and interacting with people. I love running trainings, although the area I grew towards later on, in a couple more years, was personal development and leadership related training. Than the original area I started in, which was trainings around processes, procedures, and company identity. So that actually naturally helped me understand more about my field of passion and where I wanted to further develop my career. So that's why I was telling you in the beginning of the interview that sometimes your passions, you learn about them through experiences, and you go into your field of expertise and passion by being patient and experimenting, and it develops organically.
Yeah, that sounds very, very
But you
true.
have to be curious, exactly like you're saying. You have to be curious and keep going where your highest interest is.
Yes, yes.
What interests you most?
I want to know, linked to that, because you had a very nice transition from, doing, being a professional in the learning and development field for corporate, and then moving into your own business, doing more personal and leadership development. I want to know, you know, throughout your career, I want to discuss not just the positive thing and the fact that you found your passion and now you're doing what you love. What were some challenges that you encountered? What were some, situations in your career that you were really, put through fire and you had to react to it? What were some situations like that, and what did you do? How do you approach challenges in your career?
That is, again, phenomenal. I love the fact that you're asking me that. Um, we all go through challenges in our careers. And it's actually sometimes it's the way we learn. Speaking of learning and development, is the way we learn in the fastest way. So I've learned not to ignore challenges, but to relish them. It's the way we learn the fastest. If you want an in-depth, very quick, fast-forward learning method, go towards where your challenge is. So to me, I can very vividly recall what was the one of the biggest challenges I was faced with, and it goes back to the time when I first joined Jumia, the first $1 billion tech company in Africa. They're Africa's largest e-commerce platform to this day. They're like the Alibabas of Africa, and they're spread out in 15 countries. So when I first joined Jumia, it became very obvious from my very first week in the company that their style of working was they still worked very much in a startup mindset in terms of allocating people and resources to projects from a startup standpoint. Although they were growing faster than they could ever imagine, and they were going towards corporation level, where they are today, which meant that people with high potential that joined the company were given big challenges to tackle. So how that translated for me is that in the first week of joining the company, I was presented with the mission of building the first academy of trainings for the company. And I asked about the team. There was no particular team in place. It was just me. And I asked about the budget, and they were still very much in startup modes, basically saying that, well, we'll figure it out along the way. So that put me in a position to actually have to start researching, designing, testing, and developing the first few trainings on my own. And we both come from a background and a country. I think it's not by chance we are born in a particular culture and country. In our country, it's the ones who kind of like work the hardest, and that's why there's so much brain drain as well. The ones who work the hardest actually get to have so many incredible experiences, including experiences abroad and so on and so forth. So I went straight into, when being faced with that challenge, I went straight into that mentality of, oh my God, I got to work as hard as possible. I got to prove that it's possible. And guess what happened? I did prove that it's possible, but at the same time, I got more on my table. So when they realized, I was able in a few months to set up a basic academy with the initial business trainings in a few key priority areas for the business in Nigeria. I was based in Nigeria. In Lagos. When they realized that I was able to do that through researching, designing, communicating to the managers across the company, and then delivering the trainings on my own. So developing and delivering, so running the whole cycle of research, design, testing, developing, and delivering the trainings on my own within a few months. They gave me the next big mission, which was, okay, now you can take it to a continent level, but we need to think about something that is relevant to the whole continent. And that's when I introduced the whole idea of, okay, let's start from the managerial level and develop a leadership academy. So now that introduced the next big challenge. How do you scale it up to the whole continent? And that again allowed me. So there's always two sides to every challenge. On the one hand side, it seemed very daunting for me to do this on my own, because again, I asked for a team, and again, the same answer was offered to me. Well, you've been doing this on your own greatly. Let's start by seeing what you can develop in a few months on your own. And to be honest, one of my biggest learnings in business has been, I'm a yes sayer, but at the same time, it's good to have, it's also good to learn to say yes and yes, and I also need this level of support. Yeah, because we all need a particular level of support. Yes, and I need this level of support in order to deliver to the maximum and for the business to benefit to the maximum.
I love that. I learned yes and when I started doing some improv courses. The first rule of improv is you never say no, you say yes and you just build on each other's lines, because you want to create a setup where everybody's comfortable and nobody feels judged, and you don't really say anything wrong because you're just trying to improvise and make something out of nothing, basically. And I think that transfers very nicely to business practices, personal relationships. When you want something but you don't really know how to grab it, you just say yes and you continue building on some of the stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So to tackle this new challenge, on the besides it being daunting, on the other hand side, on the positive hand side, what happened to me is, as I was sharing with you, sometimes when you go for a big challenge, that's how you learn the fastest. I found myself, once the leadership of the company approved the idea of starting with a management programs academy and leadership academy that was focused on personal development topics, I found myself in a situation where I started immersing myself and hungrily feeding myself with all information available on communications, leadership profiles, emotional intelligence, motivating yourself and motivating your team, positive mindsets that allow you to achieve what you're after. Design thinking and how to develop projects that are actually benefiting the business and benefiting the community as a whole, and impacting positively other teams. And going to conferences. I started going to conferences that had to do with personal development and leadership. So I started following all of the great speakers, from Tony Robbins to Liza Nichols in communications, Marissa Peers for mindset, hacking, and a lot of the great speakers and a lot of the great communicators around the areas of leadership and personal development across the world. And I realized I love that. I absolutely adore that. And it became part of me. What I was researching and incorporating into the leadership programs for Jumia, I was incorporating in my own life. And yeah, that was it was really transformational. I'm beyond words grateful for the opportunity.
Wow, it seems great. And I also know that moving on to what you're doing now, obviously, like you said, it was a transformational journey, moving from working with a company to doing your own thing. And I think the next natural step would be to start talking about what you're doing now, because I know it links very well with what you just said. And also to touch upon a bit upon your book about feminine leadership and how that came along, and when did that happen? Before we sum up with some advice for the listeners.
Okay, beautiful. So I'll start with the book. As I was mentioning a few years ago, when I went into these areas of leadership and personal development, I started attending a whole bunch of conferences worldwide. And that's where I met the editor of the book, where my story is featured. It was at a Mind Valley conference. Mind Valley is a huge platform for personal development and growth, and they have yearly conferences and yearly events that happen. And I met the author, J.B. Owen is her name, the publisher and author of a whole series of books called Ignite. And so there's a whole concept she's developed around igniting feminine leadership, igniting male leadership. So there's a collection of books that speaks directly to men around the new type of leadership that men can stand up for, and the new type of leadership that the feminine leadership is about, parenting and health. So a whole bunch of topics. And my story is featured. I wrote my story in her book on feminine leadership. And it went bestseller on Amazon. I'm super happy about it. It's a collection of stories of 35 incredible women from across the world, and I really encourage you to check it out, because it has so many beautiful learnings from across all continents and all voices possible, all walks of life.
Sounds very good. I will add the link. I wanted to mention that because you said it's available on Amazon, so we'll add the link.
Yes. Thank you so much for that. So the transition towards running my own company came naturally when I realized that I had been able over almost 4 years in Jumia to develop an academy of leadership trainings, but also I went into developing employee-focused trainings on personal development and growth on my own, running it on my own for 300 and then 3,000 employees across Africa. Across 15 countries. Of course, I loved traveling. This is again part of my DNA, and I love I relish any opportunity I get to travel and to meet new cultures. And at the same time, it was all developed primarily through my own efforts. And I realized, okay, if I can do this for a big multinational, I can definitely do it on my own, through my own company, and help other companies and other individuals evolve as well and reach the next level of their growth. So that's how the dream of developing Growth Hives, my current company, started. I didn't go directly into entrepreneurship as I left corporate world. I took actually 9 months off and went on my first sabbatical. And this is something that for me, it worked wonderfully. I don't know if everybody is geared to being able to allow themselves that time and nurture, but I definitely strongly recommend it, especially for women who can take the time for themselves to integrate, to nourish, to really allow themselves to figure out the next steps, especially before they want to build a business. It needn't be 9 months. It can be just 1 month of traveling to a place in your country or a place abroad that really feels nurturing to you, and developing the next steps and the big vision for your life. And for me, the big vision was around building a company that will impact individuals and other organizations to grow sustainably. So my focus with Growth Hives is wellness and holistic leadership. So I do one-on-one coaching. So a big part of my business at the moment is one-on-one coaching with feminine with female leaders from across the world on career. So women that are experiencing changes in their life and they want to know how to best plan their next step in their career, or they want to transition from a current job, a current career place to a new one, or they want to start their own company. So it's very much focused on career coaching, mindset coaching. So going into the next level of your development will involve you thinking sometimes differently. Mindset coaching, energy coaching, and feminine empowerment. These have been major topics. And I'm also collaborating with companies that want to set up transformational programs for their boards of CEOs or the C-level boards. I've collaborated with a company in Africa, the biggest cacao producing company in Nigeria, and set up a transformational leadership program for them. And as well as a large fintech company as well. Another great leadership program. So my focus is really growing sustainably and feminine leadership and transformational leadership programs.
Wow, it
as
sounds
well
like
as introducing a holistic way of looking at growth, in the sense that I look at not only classical concepts of leadership, but go into the mindset hacking, as well as energy coaching. Energy is a huge new element I've added to my work, and I've went as deep, Anda, if you can imagine, I went as deep as studying and certifying myself in various ancient energy work modalities, because I do believe that once you go into a topic, you either master it or you put it aside. I don't joke when it comes to really immersing myself into new fields. I'm hungry for learning.
I was about to say that it sounds like you had a very I don't know, transformational, if that's the word, but it seems really like a great journey for you, where I can see you're happy, and it's something that you're very passionate about, and that's absolutely amazing. I will share the link of your website, because I've also checked it. Obviously, we have been in conversation about this before, and I think it's really something that people should check out and see what it is about. Just to sum up,
I really appreciate it.
Of course, I would really like to now pick your brain a bit about advice for people listening that, let's say, didn't have the same opportunities as you did. They didn't get the chance to work for a company and move around in 17 countries, or they didn't get to go to a business school, or, just select what type of field they would like to work in. What is your advice when it comes to, fulfilling your passion, or finding your passion, or just navigating your career? What are your pieces of advice that you can share with us?
So I would say start from where you are. That's number one. Okay, start from where you are. Don't be afraid to experiment and of course, experiment in the areas that you feel most drawn by. If there's one principle I've learned never to deny myself of, is go with your highest excitement. If it doesn't seem joyful, enjoyable to you as a field, then don't go for it. Go for something better that really excites you. And especially since we're talking careers here, you don't want to spend your time and your lifetime somewhere where you feel like you're drained every day. That's why even if it seems hard in the beginning, and you may have to take an internship or volunteer for a couple of months, if you go where your excitement is and what you're particularly joyful about, at some point you will be recognized, because when you do work that is enjoyable to you, the results are completely different. You can you can see the difference. It's sky level difference. The results are completely different, and people around you will start recognizing it, and new opportunities will show up. But all it takes, and this is also as an entrepreneur, I'm speaking to entrepreneurs as well, as a holistic entrepreneur, all it takes actually is a deeper level of trust. Trust that if you take not necessarily the easiest path, but the path that is the most enjoyable to you. Why do I say it's not always the easiest path? Because sometimes we are taught by families, by society, by environments that we should go with something that feels safe. Well, sometimes we need to scrap that. Yes, it is good to go for something safe for maybe for a while, for the time we need to build a financial base, let's say. But ultimately, when it comes to the big vision for our life, at some point, we are all called to step into what excites us, because that's our gift to the world. Our gift and our core signature lies in the fields that actually draw us in, that excite us, that we're pretty passionate about. And even if it takes, let's say, learning about it through an online course and staying in a job that feels safe to you, start where you are. So start where you are. Trust that opportunities and doors will open for you, because they've always opened for you, for me as well, when I trusted. Trust that opportunities and doors will open for you once you start going in the direction of your dreams. And also, the third principle I want to introduce yourself for myself and for you as well, for the listeners is, and it has been super beneficial in all my career up until now. The third principle is nurture. So on the days, because we don't all have incredible, positive, and high growth days, on the days and seasons where you feel less energetic and less hopeful, less trusting, we all have these days. The third principle is nurture. So prioritizing nurture and well-being for yourself, doing things that are enriching, whether that is reading a book that is in the field of your passion, or taking a walk in an area that you haven't ventured in before, but you always wanted to. Expansion actually comes from us actually allowing ourselves these moments of downtime and nurture as well. So the third principle is be okay with downtime and nurture, because it's downtime and nurture that will allow you to replenish, so you have more energy to invest in what you're really passionate about, in learning and growing and going after those opportunities that are really, really good for you. And if you look at it also from a physics, because I'm passionate recently, a new field for me is quantum physics and the universe. There's periods of contraction and expansion for the universe as well. And as human beings, we function in the same way. The seasons, if you look around in nature, they work the same way. There's periods of contraction, winter, autumn and winter, and then there's periods of great expansion and flourishing. So we really need to honor the cycles of our body and nurture ourselves during downtime. That's the third principle. But they are the basis for actually being able to step up and take the lead again.
As I listen to this, I feel like I could transport myself through the screen to you in Portugal. I'm like so drawn into it.
Yes,
okay,
that's
tell
my
us
new
more.
babe.
This
That's
is
my new babe.
This is really, really
Portugal.
awesome, Alina. Thank you so much. I want to thank everybody for listening. I hope you've enjoyed the session with Alina, and stay tuned for more episodes to come. I hope you felt inspired to take charge of your next career move. Remember to review this podcast and share your comments. Thank you.